me. I want to say hello to everyone. I want to say hello to everyone that's there in person. Wish I could be there with you. Maybe next year we can make it happen. um, so I would like to present to you today a presentation that I put together called Automation Smackdown, Clicks versus Code. It's one of those things that's kind of a debate out there. And I just wanted to highlight some of the information that's actually in the Salesforce well-architected documentation on this topic. So a little bit about me. Like you mentioned, I'm a Salesforce certified technical architect. Also, here's my Twitter handle if you'd like to follow me. And a few things about myself. I'm also a B2B and B2C solution architect. I now have 35 Salesforce certifications. I'm working on some more. Just got my AI, working on Data Cloud now. I have a developer background. I have 17 years in Salesforce. I'm the founder of a program called Scale Up Architects. So if anyone's interested in that, it's for underserved, underrepresented, and it's a mentoring and coaching program. And it's being done by all CTAs right now to help people that want to move along in their architect journeys. And it's not CTA coaching, it's for people who want to just further along to become architects. Also, the co-leader of Boston Architect User Group, founder of the Architect Ohana Slack. I have a link for you after if you are not a member and you want to join. Also, Ladies Be Architects and MuleSoft Ambassador, Marketing Champion. And I'm also the co-organizer of Architect Dreamin and also Northeast Dreamin, and I'm a Golden Hoodie. And I'm actually now the co-founder and managing director, also overseeing architecture and delivery for a company called SRA. So my company, LizTech, is being acquired by this new company where I have partners that are ex-Salesforce employees. So let's get into it. So clicks versus code. So we're going to talk about the difference in definition of a flow trigger and an apex trigger. Why is it important to select one versus the other, and some use cases for using each one. So let's first talk about record triggered flows. So record triggered flow is the most commonly used automation. It's the best way to interact with the records in your org. So a record triggered flow is something that can be easily set up by an admin. You don't need to be a developer. You just need to understand logic and what the process is you're trying to accomplish. So the job of record triggered flow is if something happens, then do something else. So for record triggered flows, the trigger determines which object the flow acts on and when it runs. So you can set it up to run when a record is created, anytime a record is updated, anytime a record is created or updated, or only when a record is deleted. So next we have apex trigger. So this is going to be our trigger that's built with just code. So many of you are probably familiar with apex. So the apex trigger enables you to perform custom actions before or after events to records in Salesforce, such as insertions, updates, or deletions. This is the same as your record triggered flow. So just like database system support triggers, Apex provides trigger support for managing records. So the Apex trigger is going to just give a little bit more functionality than the record triggered flow. And it's going to be more, a little bit, takes developer skill set, and it's just going to be a little bit more overhead to build an Apex trigger. So why the right selection is important? So you got to think about things like performance and scalability, maintainability, the skill sets of the people you have. So are they admins? Are they developers? Do you have, a CI/CD process? Are you using proper DevOps? And then also the time to value and overall cost. And this is something that any architect should be thinking about. You really are thinking about time to value, cost, ROI, and risk. So that is why choosing one versus the other is so important. So this is right from the Salesforce well-architected documentation on record triggered automation. These are the most common use cases for triggers and the two tools that are well suited for each one. So you can see we've got low code going all the way to pro code. And we've got the before save flow trigger, after save flow trigger, after save flow trigger with Apex. So that's going to be your Apex invocable action that can be called from flow. And then your Apex triggers, which is just pure Apex code. And we're going to go into each one of these in more detail. So round one in our automation Smackdown, we've got same record field updates. So you can see the record change flow before save. Sorry, really tired. It's what 1:30 a.m. for me.
Hello,
So
Melissa.
you can see that.
So,
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt. I think we don't see your screen.
You don't.
Yeah, I missed that. Sorry, my bad.
You've not been seeing my slides.
No, we are able to see you, but not your slides.
Yeah, but you're not. Oh, you're not seeing the slides. I'm sharing. Okay.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
You should join us in person, Melissa.
Did
Next
it?
time.
Yeah, I know. It must have stopped sharing at some point.
Yeah,
I
now
might
we'll be
have
able to
clicked.
see.
Okay. So, did you miss all the slides at the beginning? But this is the one I was just on. So this goes over all the different ways you can build triggers. So we got low code going all the way to pro code, and you can still see now, right?
Yeah, can see them.
Yep.
Okay, good. You get before save flow trigger, after save flow trigger, after save flow trigger with the Apex invocable action, and then the Apex triggers, which is the Apex code. So we're going to go into each one of those in detail. So round one of the automation Smackdown is the same record field updates. So you can see that these are available for before save flows. They're not ideal for after save flows. So that might be something that's new to you. They're really not ideal for after save flow and using Apex invocable actions, but with Apex triggers, these are ideal for same record updates. So same record updates will minimize the number of same record field updates that occur after the save. So before save flow triggers or before save Apex triggers are the best way to accomplish same record updates. So here you can see it's probably about the same. So you would choose one versus the other depending on skill set, whether it's admin or developer. You already have Apex triggers. If you don't, then you might just want to go with flow and building a flow trigger framework. And so here's some interesting information that is presented in this documentation. So we've got a single trigger on a single record created from the UI, and they're tracking the performance using the Apex debug log. So how much longer does an end user have to wait for a record to save using all the different ways that we can update in Salesforce? So this is the average overhead added to the single record save by the same record field update trigger. So you can see here on the left, we get the before save Apex. That's the best performance you can get. So this is where you want to think if you've got a lot of records, this is where it could really make a difference in performance and scalability. Next, we have the before save flow. So it's not too much worse than the before save Apex. So you can still go with before save flow. I'm sure at some point you might start to see some performance degradation depending on your number of records. And then we get the after save Apex, which is not great. Then we've got workflow rules, which that's going out the window. So we won't even care about those at some point. And then we've got the after save flow. So you can see here that the after save flow performance just really starts to get a lot worse than, you know, the after save Apex or the before save Apex and the before save flow. And then over here on the right, we've got process builder and, you know, process builder with an auto launch flow, and then process builder by itself. Horrible performance. So thank God Salesforce is getting rid of process builder, moving everything to flow. And now we can see why the performance is not great whatsoever. So in this round, our process builder is knocked out. It did not win the fight. So same record updates performed anywhere between 10 to 20 times faster when implemented using before save triggers than when implemented using workflow rules or process builder. So that's good news. So flow is really a good option even for performance scalability. All right, our next round. This is our high performance batch processing. So this is not ideal for it's not ideal to use a record change flow before save or after save or even with Apex. The best thing here is an Apex triggers or, you know, batch Apex. So Apex can perform the complex logic in batch scenarios. That's usually why you go to batch. Flow continues to be more constrained and less feature-rich than Apex still right now. Scheduled flows can currently do a batch operation on up to 250,000 records per day. So that's something you'd want to think about when determining scalability. So you have a limitation there. And then scheduled paths and record triggered flows also now support configurable batch sizes, which is also, that's good news. So if you do want to write your batch processing and flow, you definitely want to do it on smaller numbers of records and make sure your batch sizes are going to start to cause problems with governor limits. So another little bit of metrics here for you, performance metrics. So this is a test that was done on the batch scenario. So there are 50 triggers on 50,000 records inserted via the bulk API. So this was 200 record batches. So this is how many times as long as a before save Apex trigger does a trigger built in this tool take to perform a same record field update across a batch of 200 records. So what you saw before was on one record, a single record. Now this is on a batch. So you can see here on the left, before save Apex, still the highest performing tool that you can find on the platform. And then we have before save flow, still not too much worse, but a little bit, but still a good option. And then we've got our workflow rules, after save flow trigger. After save flow trigger is just not a good option here. And then we get process builder, which is the worst of them all once again. So process builder, it's done. It's out. Thank God it's coming off the platform and everything's going to be in flow. So, next is round 3. This is the cross object CRUD. So this is, your operations that you're going to perform on data. So this is not available in your before save record triggered flows. So you're not even going to consider that, but it is available and it's a good option when you have, when you want to use a record after save flow plus Apex or an Apex trigger. So here, you really can go either way. So creating, updating, or deleting a different record other than the original record that triggered the transaction requires a database operation. So that's where your cross object CRUD comes in to play. So Apex outperforms Flow in raw database operation speed. So less time for the Apex runtime to prepare, perform, and process the results. So Apex is going to be your best option here, highest performing, highest scalability and performance. But you can still use Flow. It's still an option. It's still a good option. So just got to look at number of records and what kind of performance you want. Next, we have complex list processing. So this is an interesting one. So it's not ideal with record after save flows. It's not ideal. You can't even do it with before save flows. Not ideal with after save flows. It is good if you want to do it with after save flows and Apex invocable actions or Apex triggers. So why is that? It's because Flow really has a limited set of basic list processing operations, but now there is filtering and sorting. I've used those, they work great. So to do this more complex processing on lists, you really do need to use Apex, or modularize individual components for complex use cases. So that's building your Apex invocable actions that you can call from within Flow to go do this complex work and then come back to the Flow to finish your processing. There's really no way to reference an item in a Flow collection. That's another thing that if you do work with Flow, you might find frustrating because you can do that with Apex very easily. And then also, this is a very big consideration. In Flow, loops are executed serially at runtime. So even with batch processing, the SOCL or DML operations within a loop are not bulkified. So why do we care about that? We want to bulkify our processing on the platform because that's when it will help us with governor limits and performance. So keep that in mind when you're doing list processing within Flow. So you're probably always better off to go to Apex for that, or use the Flow with Apex invocable actions. Round 5, this is our asynchronous processing. So this is a topic I actually will present on all by itself, is what are all the different ways that you can do asynchronous processing on the Salesforce platform. And I'm actually going to get into that a little bit. I'm going to give you a little bit of that content. So you do not do asynchronous processing with before save flows. So asynchronous is your fire and forget type of patterns. That would be, creating a platform event, something like that. So you would use an after save flow with an Apex invocable action or an Apex trigger. So Flow offers a fixed amount of retries and some basic error handling via its fault path, that's great. So we're getting some more functionality here when it comes to synchronous processing within Flow. Apex does offer more direct control. And then the run asynchronously path will also potentially allow for more stateful capabilities in the future. So that's actually really exciting. So if you're wondering what asynchronous processing is, here's a little bit about that. So first, we'll talk about asynchronous flow. This is a declarative way to automate, as we've been talking about. And there's 4 main ways you can build asynchronous flow. You can have a scheduled triggered flow. That means you want something to run at a specified time and frequency. Maybe you want to check the status change of a whole bunch of records in your system. So this wouldn't run off one record. It would just do a bunch of processing at a scheduled time on a bunch of records. So why is this asynchronous? It's because it's not happening real time. It's happening some other time in the future. So asynchronous can be kind of real time, all the way to scheduled, such as like batch processing or these scheduled triggered flows. Then we also have the flow with the asynchronous path. So that's where you create a flow and you can check the box at the beginning that says you want to run a path asynchronously. So you have your synchronous path, which is your serial path, then your asynchronous path, which will run, it won't be dependent upon the other operations. So maybe you want to connect a record trigger flow to an external system, or you need to send data to another downstream system. You could do it with this other path, the asynchronous path. Another way to go asynchronous with flow is flow with asynchronous invocable action. So that's what we've been talking about, mixing the flow with the Apex. So you can move your complex logic to an Apex action. Maybe you got some complex Apex code to do some sort of calculations and update a bunch of fields with the results. So that you might want to just move to that Apex. And then I mentioned this, the flow that creates a platform event. So how this works is maybe you want to update some related records when subscribing to this platform event, or you want to send data to an external system by creating this platform event. So maybe you change something on an opportunity and then you want to update the related order and order line items, but you don't want to do that all in one thread. You want to update your opportunity, and then that flow that fires on the opportunity could then create a platform event record. And then you can have a flow that subscribes to that platform event and then does some other processing on your order and order line items once that platform event is fired. And next we'll get into asynchronous Apex. So this is your programmatic. With asynchronous Apex, you get higher governor and execution limits. So this is great because we care about governor limits on the platform. This is what can bite us when we're trying to develop things and build things. So when we go asynchronous, we get higher limits. So the biggest ways with asynchronous Apex is the first one is future methods. So this is for executing long-running operations. They run in their own thread and they do not start until resources are available. So maybe an example here is maybe you have a field on your account with number of open cases for that account. So maybe when you update this field whenever a case is opened or closed. So it's going to do some processing in the background. And the thing about synchronous versus asynchronous is if you have synchronous processing, if a user clicks a button and you got to go do this processing in the background, it can take a while. The user is stuck on that screen. They can't move. They can't do anything else. But when you move it asynchronously and that user is not dependent upon that result, that work can be done on the background. It can get updated. And then you can even create a notification, like send a Slack notification or create a custom notification in Salesforce to tell the user, hey, this processing is done. Go back and check the record. Next, we have batch Apex. So this is, we talked about this a little bit. This is to run large jobs that would exceed normal processing limits. It's more complex processing. Maybe you want to do some data cleansing or archiving of records, such as for orders that are large data volume and they've been completed. So you want to move them off platform. That's when you might want to run some batch Apex. Then we also have queuable Apex. So this is actually similar to future methods, but it provides additional job chaining and allows for more complex data types to be used. So maybe you want to find a list of accounts that meet a criteria such as in a zip code, create an account contact relationship for a specific contact by passing in the contact record. So you can actually work on that contact record. Whereas with future methods, you can't work on those complex data types. And then we have scheduled Apex, pretty much similar to batch. So you're just scheduling the Apex to run at a specific time. It's not a trigger, it's a bunch of code that's scheduled. Maybe you want to run daily or weekly tasks, such as mass updates on records. Maybe you're, mass updating a status or something after a certain date. So you want to do that. It's really similar, same thing, batch Apex to scheduled Apex. So that brings us to our last round. So this is an interesting one because this is something that's actually just changing with the Winter 24 release. So this is custom validation errors. So with custom validation errors, this was not available in Flow at all. It was only available with Apex triggers, but I've just updated this because now it's available. I believe it's going to be fully available as of around October 8th when all the Winter 24 release, and when everyone gets upgraded to Winter 24 release. So when everyone's on that, they're going to have the ability to create these custom validation errors in Flow. So they can be created for before save and after save flows. Also, support for calling the add error method in Apex directly from Flow as a new low-code element is expected to be included in the Winter 24 release as well. So that's exciting news. So now we can create these custom validation error messages in both Flow and Apex. So each tool is a good choice here if we need to create those, because previously you couldn't even call Apex from Flow using add error to create these custom validation error messages. So very exciting. And if you didn't know that was in the release, now you know. So to sum it all up, when designing record triggered automation, you really only want to use one tool or framework per object. So this is also something else to consider. So if you already have an Apex trigger framework, it doesn't really make sense to then go create a flow on that same object. You might as well just modify the Apex and keep everything in that same framework that you already have built. If you're going to use Flow, you want to put all your automation into a parent flow and use subflows for all logic. So these would be auto launch flows that get called from the parent triggered flow. This creates reusability, and it's similar to Apex patterns where you have helper methods and reusable code instead of writing the same thing over and over again. So you want to think like a developer when designing your Flow framework. Also, you don't want to put all your automation in one place, and you don't want to put it into one big flow. So this is why you would use subflows. You want to split it out into the smallest possible chunks. And then, is there an ideal number of flows you should have per object? And that number is, well, there really isn't an ideal number. It's just, it really depends on what your business process is and what your framework looks like and how you want to organize all your flows. You also can control the order of operation on your flows now, which is a great enhancement. So you don't have to worry about order of execution, which is going to fire first. You can actually control that, which is a really great feature in Flow if you weren't aware of that. And it's right in your Flow definition. There's an advanced area, I believe, that you expand, and you can put, put a 1 or 2 or 3, what order you want it to fire in. So some conclusions: Flow is faster and easier for lower volumes. It's faster and easier to develop for lower volumes and less complex processing. So lower volumes are records and less complex processing of data. Use Apex triggers if you already have a framework in place and you do have a CI/CD process and a DevOps process. And then you need to use your Apex for your more complex processing and just higher volume in general. So like we mentioned before, maybe you have to have Apex invocable actions to do some stuff and combine that with Flow. So there's that option of having both. So it's not always just one versus the other, or one's better than the other. There's a situation when one could be great and the other is just not the good choice because of many different factors that you want to think about. And here I've got some resources for you. This is the first one is the Salesforce Well Architected. That's where this content comes from. Most of it comes from there, those tables that I showed. There's also the second URL is specifically for the automated, and then record triggered automation is the third link here. This information is all in there. You're going to get even more detail, more information on everything that I presented if you go to this URL. And then they also have event-driven architecture. That's another great resource in Salesforce Well Architected. I'm a Well Architected ambassador, so I'm always presenting on Well Architected content. I run Well Architected workshops at both Dreamforce and Trailblazer DX. I also run them at community conferences. I ran some in India, so some of you there might actually have met me there at the Well Architected workshop. Also, here's the URL for Architect Dreamin. So if any of you are interested, we'll be running that again. We just had it this past May in Prague, and be on the lookout for the 2024 date and city, but it should be in May again. And then also here's the URL for the Architect Ohana Slack that I mentioned earlier. If you're not a member, anyone's welcome. It's just an architect community for anyone that's on their architect journey or newer to architecture or CTA. Many people become CTAs to the group. They've created, it started as a CTA study group. Waruna, who you heard from before, he was one of the original members. We were study buddies on our CTA journeys, and then it's just become a home for architects. We have over 100 CTAs that are in the community, over 60 that have become CTAs as part of the group and created their, either as part of our study group or created their own study groups within the community. So, and that's it. Thank you very much. And I am very appreciative to have presented this to you all, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. Enjoy the event.
Thank you, Melissa, for your amazing session on automation system Smackdown. As you know, Salesforce is one of the system where they recommend to use the out of the features. So it's really insightful to the audience. And especially you are staying late and you have a get together tomorrow morning. And my sincere gratitude for staying late and joining us in the Yarl Dreamin conference, Melissa. We really appreciate it.
Happy to be a part of it all. So
thanks, Melissa. And as I mentioned earlier, we really expect you to join us in person next time.
Next year, I'll try to make it happen for sure.
Sure, Melissa. Thanks a lot.